हरिः ओम् नमः सर्वेभ्यः। अष्टाध्यायी परिचयः इत्यस्य अद्य त्रयोविंशः पाठः। अस्मिन् वर्गे सावर्ण्यम् इति विषयम् अधिकृत्य अष्टाध्याय्यां पाठितानि सूत्राणि पठामः। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम्। अस्माकं वर्गस्य द्वे प्रयोजने प्रथमम् अष्टाध्याय्याः आहत्य चतुश्शतस्य सूत्राणां व्याख्यासहितम् उदाहरणसहितं च अध्ययनं। तदनन्तरम् अष्टाध्याय्याः प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य कण्ठस्थीकरणम्. So we have already started studying the sutras, and as far as the Kanthasthikaranam is concerned, I wanted to spend some time in today's class to get you started. But let's see, the material that I want to cover is significantly longer. So if time permits, I'll take it today. Otherwise, we will take it in one of the upcoming classes where the material is little less. प्रारभामहे। अद्य अधीयमानानि केवलं चत्वारि एव सूत्राणि। संज्ञा परिभाषम् इत्यस्य अध्ययनं प्रचलत् अस्ति। तत्र संज्ञा प्रकरणस्य सूत्राणाम् अध्ययनं क्रियमाणं वर्तते। पूर्वस्मिन् वर्गे अस्माभिः शिक्षाशास्त्रेषु तथा च तदनन्तरं व्याकरणे पाठिताः साधारणसंज्ञाः अधीताः। इदानीम् अद्य विशेषरूपेण सवर्णम् इति विषयम् अधिकृत्य ये विषयाः अष्टाध्याय्यां पाठ्यन्ते तेषां किञ्चित् अस्मिन् वर्गे अध्ययनं कुर्मः। So 4 sutras, the concepts that these sutras deal with are already known to you. So in previous classes, we have already studied pratyaharas, how the pratyaharas are created. So in the Shiva Sutras, the first letter is combined with an Itsamnyaka letter and it includes everything that is in the beginning and in the middle. We also have pratyaharas inside the sutras. We also learned what savarnas are. We also talked about what is a savarna grahanam. So I have given you an analogy of a train where the engine carries the compartments along with it. So that's savarna grahanam. And then we also saw where does savarna grahanam happen and where does it not happen. So in case of uddeshya, the savarna grahanam happens. In case of vidheya, the savarna grahanam does not happen. And then we learned a trick of adding a ta called tapara karanam, which will block or which will restrict the scope of that savarna grahanam. We also saw the usage of this takara in sutras like Vruddhiradhaj and Adengunaha in the previous class. So all the concepts are absolutely known except for some minor Shastra points here and there. There is going to be nothing new in the class. So as far as the idea or the concepts are concerned, the class is going to be easy. But still, there is a lot of sutra related material that we have to discuss today. So प्रारभामहे। तत्र अद्य अस्मिन् पाठे चत्वारि सूत्राणि अस्माभिः अध्येतव्यानि। आदिरन्त्येन सहेता इति प्रथमं सूत्रम्। अनेन सूत्रेण सर्वे प्रत्याहाराः अण् इण् उण् अच् उक् इत्यादयः प्रत्याहाराः सिद्ध्यन्ति। सो प्रत्याहार संज्ञा विधायकं सूत्रम्। प्रत्याहार is not a specific samnya. So Panini Maharshi doesn't use the word pratyahara in the context of an, in, and so on. Instead, ach and in are themselves samnyas. So we say an, in ityadi samnya vidhayakam sutram asti adiranyena saheta. Tadanantaram agrimam sutram tulyasya prayatnam savarnam. So savarna samnya vidhayakam sutram. What is a savarna? So uchcharana sthanam and abhyantara prayatnaha yasya yena mithat tulyam. We have seen this, so that's the sutram over here. The next one is the savarna grahaka sutram. This is technically a paribhasha. This is not a samnya sutram, but it is in the context of savarnas. So who does the savarna grahanam and when? So that's what will be discussed in this third sutra. And finally, the fourth one is the niyama sutram, savarna grahana niyamaka sutram. That is the sutram for tapara karanam. So that's the whole plan for today's class. प्रारभामहे। तत्र प्रथमं सूत्रं प्रथमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य 170तमं सूत्रम् आदिरन्त्येन सहेता। अन्त्येन इतासः आदिः मध्यगानां स्वस्य च संज्ञा स्यात्. So the meaning should be pretty clear. In a Maheshwara Sutram, for example, Antyena itasah, Antyena itvarnena sah, Antyena anubandhena sah, Vidyamanah adihi madhyaganam, ityukte madhye vidyamananam, तथा च स्वस्य अपि संज्ञा स्यात्. So that's how ach and so on are created. So the idea is known. Let's now look at the sutram. अत्र आहत्य चत्वारि पदानि आदिः अन्त्येन सह इता. Saha plus ita guna has happened. So saheta is what you see in the sutram. So adihi antyena saha ita. Let's go to the website and let's see this 1171 number sutram. Adirantyena saheta. A little bit before in 1168, there is this sutram swam rupam shabdasya ashabda samnya. From this particular sutram, swam and rupam are taken as anuvrittis. So adihi antyena sah ita is the padacheda, and swam and rupam are taken as anuvritti from swam rupam shabdasya shabda samnya. Not just taken as anuvritti, but there is something special happens over here. Etau shabdau asmin sutre shashtya viparinamyete. Shashtya viparinamyete means these words which are in a different vibhakti, in a prathama vibhakti in 1.1.68 are taken by changing the vibhakti. अत्र अस्मिन् सूत्रे एतयोः शब्दयोः षष्ठी विभक्त्या ग्रहणं भवति. Are we allowed to change vibhaktis like this in the anuvrittis? The general answer is no. You usually take the word as it is. But if you want to do a proper sentence construction, sometimes you need to change the vibhaktis. That kind of leniency is allowed. I mean, the meaning is not changing altogether. It's just the vibhakti being changed so that you can fit it in the Sampurna Sutram or Anuvritti Sahitam Sutram. So, Anuvritti Sahitam Sutram in this particular context, after doing the vibhakti viparinama, the transformation of the vibhakti, after doing this vibhakti viparinama, the anuvritti sahitam sutram will be antyena itasah adihi swasya rupasya. And then samnya is the adhyahara. So antyena itasah adihi swasya rupasya samnya bhavati iti atra moolah ashayah. Now, what does this exactly mean and how does it allow us to create pratyaharas? So, let's see. The first word is antyena. What is antyaha? Ante vidyamanaha saha antyaha. The one that exists at the end. At the end of a Maheshwara Sutram in this particular case, or at the end of something. So, if you want to create pratyaharas of dhatus, take some letter that is present at the end of somewhere. So, ante vidyamana saha antyaha tena ityukte antyena. The Shastras go in a little bit more details and say, what is an anta or what is an antya? Yasmat paraha nasti. Yasmat anantaram kimapi na vidyate. Vidyate chedapi asmakam sandarbhasya krute tasya upyogah nasti. Parantu yasmat purvam kinchid vidyate. So yasmat paraha nasti purvah asti saha antyaha. एतादृशः अन्त्यः वर्णः itsamnyakah bhavet, anubandhaha bhavet, and therefore there is ita which is used as the visheshya for antyena. Ita iti it shabdasya tritiya ekvachanam. Ita, we have not yet seen this samnya formally. We are going to spend one full class on the it samnya, but in general you all are aware that anubandha or it is a vyakarana vishishta samnya. Both the names are interchangeable. You can use the word anubandha, you can use the word ita, and then tena saha. So you are using tritiya over here. So antyena ita saha. And then who is along with that antyena antya ita? It is adihi. Adihi ityukte prathamaha. Same definition, but now reverse the words. Yasmat paraha nasti purvaha asti. यस्मात् परः अस्ति, कॉपी पेस्ट, यस्मात् परः अस्ति पूर्वः नास्ति, लेट्स फिक्स दिस, यस्मात् परः अस्ति पूर्वः नास्ति सः आदिः, and the antya was yasmat paraha nasti purvaha asti saha antyah. So this is now the adi. You have an entity after which something exists, that is adi, and you have an entity before which something exists, that is an antya. So now what does the sutra indicate? Antyena itasah adi swasya rupasya. So that adi will include its own form. So when you take a of the first Shiva Sutra and combine it with say ch of the fourth Shiva Sutra, you get a combination called ach, that is antyena itasah adihi. So that is ach. And what is it now indicating? It is indicating swasya rupam, means adi varnasya rupam. Antyena itasah adihi इत्युक्ते चकारेण सह विद्यमानः अकारः स्वस्य रूपं दर्शयति. But now there is a problem, because if you say अच् केवलं स्वस्य रूपं दर्शयति, तर्हि तत्र मध्ये विद्यमानः इ उ रु लु ए ऐ एतेषां निर्देशः कथं भवेत्? Therefore, what the commentators do is that they say there is an adi, there is an anta. Obviously, there must be something in the middle, that is for granted. Yasmat paraha asti saha adihi, yasmat purvaha asti saha antyah. So there must be that entity which is the para of that adi and the purva of that antya, that is called madhyaga. And there is a paribhasha in the Vyakarana Shastra which says Tanmadhyapatitaha tadgrahanena grihyante. Tadgrahanena. So if you take the two ends of a rope and lift the rope, the middle part of the rope automatically gets lifted. If you travel from Mumbai to Bangalore by road, you are automatically visiting the cities that fall on that road. So tan madhyapatitaha tad grahanena griyante. So whenever you take an adi and whenever you take an anta, तयोः मध्ये विद्यमानाः अन्ये वर्णाः अपि सरलरीत्या गृह्यन्ते. तदर्थं सूत्रे तेषां निर्देशः न आवश्यकः, परन्तु स्पष्टीकरणार्थं मध्यग इति शब्दः तत्र अस्याः परिभाषायाः सामर्थ्यात् सूत्रार्थे स्थापयितुं शक्यः. So we are going to take this word madhyaga. It is not coming as anuvritti or apakarsha or manduka pluti anything. It is a word that we created by using the paribhasha tanmadhyapatitas tadgrahanena grihyante, and now we are going to put it in the anuvritti sahitam sutram. We call it akshepa sahitam sutram, because this word which is thrown by us is called akshepaha. Akshepa in some Indian languages means objection. That's not what the meaning is over here. Akshepa means something is thrown in between. So antyena itasah adihi swasya rupasya is all given in the sutram, and madhyaga is thrown in between. Now the whole sutra becomes antyena itasah adihi swasya rupasya madhyaganam cha rupanam samnya bhavati, and then everything falls in place. Antim itvarenena sah sthapitah adivarnah स्वस्य रूपस्य तथा मध्ये अपि विद्यमानानां वर्णानां निर्देशं करोति. So for example, in Jabagada, if you take the shakara, that is the antima itvarna, and combine with the adi varna jakara, that jasha entity or the jakara itself, because we are saying adihi swasya madhyaganam cha samnya. So that jakara itself will now indicate Jabagada, the five entities together. That's the whole essence of antyena itasah adihi madhyaganam swasya cha samnya syat. Now understand, who is the samni and who is the samnya? Who is known to us? The known entity is the adi and the madhyagas. So the samni or uddeshyam is the Adi and the Madhyagas. The Shiva Sutra Jabagardash is known to us. Jabagadada are all known to us. So these are the Samnis. Who is the Samnya? Jasha is the Samnya. That is newly being created. So Antyena itasah adihi, this entity like Jasha or Acha or Allah is the Samnya. And therefore, अस्य सूत्रस्य आधारेण सिद्धाः संज्ञाः प्रत्याहाराः नाम्ना ज्ञायन्ते. So somebody is making a comment over here. The actual samnya is not constant. It's a kind of a variable in this particular equation. So in mathematics, in this particular sutra. So in mathematical terms, it is a placeholder. It is unlike Vruddhi Radich or Adeng Gunaha, where Vruddhi and Guna are actual samnyas. The actual samnya is not given in this sutram. A mechanism of constructing 52 different samnyas is given in this particular sutram. All that it says, it's like a meta samnya. All that it says is it take the last letter, take the first letter, and whatever you combine together is a samnya. So asya sutrasya adharena siddhaha sarvaha samnyaha pratyaharaha namna jnayante. So Siddhanta Kaumudi clarifies आदिरन्त्येन इत्येतत् सूत्रेण कृताः संज्ञाः प्रत्याहार शब्देन व्यवह्रियन्ते. Pratyahara is not the samnya. It is the meta samnya. It is the samnya for all the 52 samnyas that are actually used as samnyas in Ashtadhyayi. So आदिरन्त्येन इत्येते सूत्रेण कृताः संज्ञाः प्रत्याहार शब्देन व्यवह्रियन्ते. एते प्रत्याहाराः द्विविधाः. All this is taught. शिवसूत्रैः सिद्धाः चतुश्चत्वारिंशत् प्रत्याहाराः and ak, ach and so on. There also remember yama pratyaharaha kevalam unadi sutre asti yamantaddha. Chay pratyaharaha kevalam vartike asti chayo dvitiya shari paushkara sadiriti vacham. And ra pratyahara, which is a very special pratyahara created by using the akara of the Lana Sutra. This ra pratyahara is only accepted by the Prachina Vayyakarnas. Nagesha and others don't accept ra pratyahara. All this you are expected to know because you have studied it and again written it in the homework. Just this is an example, just a kind of revision. So except for these three special cases, all other pratyaharas are seen in Ashtadhyayi Sutras. So these are the Shiva Sutraihi Siddhaha Pratyaharaha. And then you have Ashtadhyayi Sutraha Pratyaharaha, like Supa, Sutta, Apa. Remember, if you go to the Pratyahara page on the website, you have a total of 52 Pratyaharas. All of them are used or created by using Adirantyena Saheta Sutram. So Supa is again Adirantyena Saheta, starting from Su of Su Aujas up to the Pa of Supa, the last 21th Pratyahara. You take that Pa and combine with Su and form Supa, that's the Pratyahara. In this particular way, Ashtadhyayi Sutraihi api siddhaha pratyaharaha anenaiva sutrena siddhyanti. And then this is again one revision. Pratyahareshu itam nagarhanam achara pradhanatvat lopascha balavattaraha. So all this has already been taught in the previous class. I just wrote over here so as to have a complete structure of this particular sutram. Any questions? Please raise hands. There is a question over here which says not only pratyahara to refer other many entities this sutra is used. No, this sutra is specifically for pratyaharas. That's why Kaumudi is very clear. Adirantyena ityeta sutrena krutaha samnyaha pratyahara shabdena vyavahriyante. Sudhavalli ji.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Is there any difference between Sanya and Gana? Gana and Sanya both are doing the same work in the Ashtadhyayi. Alpaksharatvam. Is there any difference? Is there any sutra which connects Sanya and Gana? Just like
Gana
as Pratyahara.
Correct. Gada is simply a collection of words, maybe dhatus or maybe pratyas or whatever, but basically collection of words. Whereas samnya is not just a collection. In this particular samnya, it might look like collection. But otherwise, for example, Sanyoga is not a collection. Virama is not a collection. Samhita is not a collection. So samyas have much different use or utility than just being a gana. Okay. Here it is, it makes sense that there is a samya is basically sequence of letters, but that's not a general case. Does that answer the question?
Dhanyawad.
Krishna Kumar Mahoday.
Namaste, Mahodaya. In your previous slide, if you don't mind, can you go back to previous slide, slide 5? Here you have defined Adi. Where is that? Here, Adi Pratamaha Ityashaya Yasmat Paraha Asti Purvaha Nasti. So if you take Ik, Purvaha Asti Kila.
E is the first, no? Where is Purva before that? There is no, E is the first.
Ha is there, no?
No. So I mentioned that, na, Sandarbham Swikrutya Purvaha Nasti. So obviously, whatever you speak, there will be something before that. So, right? So Purvaha Nasti ityukte asmakam samya nirmanasya karye Purvaha Nasti.
Okay.
One before that doesn't really matter. It doesn't exist as far as our discussion is concerned.
Okay.
That is what.
Got it. Thank you.
And you cannot say that for U, Ru, and so on. So if you take Ika, for U and Ru, you cannot say Purvaha Nasti because Purva, which is Ikara, is in the picture when you are talking about Ika Samya. Clear?
Yes. Dhanyawad.
Sorry. Anything else? Okay, so this defines the pratyaharas and this defines the basically the group of letters that will now be used in the sutras. Now let's go to the next concept, the concept of Savarna Samya. So as far as the Savaranyam is concerned, there are three important sutras or three important aspects that we want to understand. First is the Samnya Sutram. The sutram by which the Savaranyam or the Savarna property is defined. So dvau varnau savarnau staha utana asya prashnasya uttaram tulyasya prayatnam savarnam ityanena diyate. So is a and a savarna, is a and u savarna, these kind of questions are answered by this sutram. The next is Savarna Grahakam Sutram. So a and a may be savarnas, but when a sutra references a, does it also mean a? Or when the sutra references a, does it mean a? So does a savarna bring other savarnas in the context of that sutra? So that is grahanam, to take along with itself. So savarna grahakam sutram, that's the paribhasha. कश्चन वर्णः कदा सवर्णानां ग्रहणं करोति अस्य प्रश्नस्य उत्तरम् अनेन सूत्रेण दीयते. And then the next is Savarna Grahana Niyamakam Sutram. So when I say a always includes a, is there a way to short circuit that and say no, a will not include a in a certain context? So that is the Taparakaranasya Sutram, Taparastatkalasya, ye varnaha samanya rupena savarna grahanam kurvanti, te savarna grahanam vina, the engine without the compartments. कथम प्रयोक्तुम शक्याः अस्य प्रश्नस्य उत्तरम अनेन सूत्रेण दीयते. So the first is the Samya Sutram, second is the Paribhasha Sutram, third is the Niyama Sutram. Let's take the first one. Tulyasya prayatnam savarnam talvadisthanam abhyantara prayatna. Some typing mistake on the slide. Talvadisthanam abhyantara prayatnaha cha ityetad dvayam yasya yenam tulyam tanmithaha savarna samyam syat. Let me just confirm the wording from Siddhanta Kaumudi. ठीक है. तो यस्य येन तुल्यम तन्मिथः सवर्ण सम्यम स्यात्. So what is the simple language meaning? Dvau varnau yayoho mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam. So that's the talvadi sthanam. And abhyantara prayatnaha. So abhyantara prayatnaha cha ityetat dvayam yasya yena tulyam ityukte samanah asti. There is a typing mistake. Let me fix this. Abhyantara prayatnaha. And on the top, talvadisthanam abhyantara prayatnascha yasya yena tulyam. Okay. So tau parasparyoho savarnau staha. The padacheda is simple. Tulyasya prayatnam savarnam padadvayatmakam sutram. Who is the sanni uddeshyam tulyasya prayatnam. For every varna, you know its uchcharana sthanam, you know its abhyantara prayatna, you know whether they are equal or not. So tulyasya prayatnam is a known entity, it is uddeshyam. The new term that we are going to define is a savarnam, that is vidheyam. Let us break down the word tulyasya prayatnam. Tulyau asya prayatnau yasya varnasya yena varnena sah. This is how the samasa is broken. Tulyasya prayatnam indicates a pair of letters. So tulyasya prayatnam indicates two letters, a group of letters that are being called savarnas of each other. So tulyau asya prayatnau yasya varnasya yena varnena sah tat varna yugalam, the group, that two letter group for which asya prayatnau tulyau ityukte sadrushau, tulyaha ityukte sadrushaha, asya prayatna. Asyam means mukhe bhavaha, mukhyam means not main over here, mukhe bhavaha. So asye bhavaha saha api asyaha. Asya ityukte mukha. Understand this. Let me just fix this. Mukhe bhavaha. Sorry, mukham. Let me go step by step. The word asya in Sanskrit means mukham. So the mouth is called asya. You might have heard the shasya, panchasya. So asya means mouth. Asye bhavaha, the one that exists in the mouth, is also asya. So there is a yata pratyaya that comes. You have asya plus ya. Some prakriya happens, one yakara goes away and the final form is again asya, but now it indicates mukhe vidyamanam sthanam. So asye bhavaha saha api asyaha mukhasthitam sthanam iti ashayaha. Basically, asya would mean anything inside the mouth. In this sutra, in the context of this sutra, it is mukhasthitam sthanam. So mukhasthitam sthanam iti ashayaha, and prayatnaha is prakrishtaha yatnaha, is if specifically it indicates abhyantara prayatnaha, spruštesha and so on. So sprushtatadi gunaha. So asya prayatno is asyaha cha prayatnaha cha ityukte mukhasthitam sthanam तथा च आभ्यंतर प्रयत्नः. ययोः वर्णयोः मुखस्थितम् उच्चारण स्थानं परस्पर सदृशम् अस्ति, तथा च आभ्यंतर प्रयत्नः अपि परस्पर सदृशः अस्ति. So mukhasthitam sthanam and abhyantara prayatna are not equal to each other. Somebody asked this question to me many years ago. I never thought such a doubt will come. It is mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam of one being compared to mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam of other. And similarly, abhyantara prayatna of one is being compared to abhyantara prayatna of other. The uchcharana sthana and abhyantara prayatna are not compared to each other. That's why I made it two separate sentences. Varnayoho mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam paraspara sadrusham तथा च अभ्यंतर प्रयत्नः अपि परस्पर सदृशः. तौ वर्णौ परस्परयोः सवर्ण सम्यकौ स्तः. तौ वर्णौ परस्परयोः सवर्णौ स्तः इति आशयः. And then, because the discussion is coming up in that context, let's revise the mukhasthitani uchcharana sthanani and the abhyantara prayatnas. This all you should have memorized by now. So akuha visarjaniyanam kantaha ichuyashanam talu ruturashanam murdha lutulasanam dantaha upopadmanyanam oshtau yamaganananam nasika cha edaitoho kanthatalu odautoho kanthostham vakarasya dantoshtham जिह्वामूलीयस्य जिह्वामूलं नासिका अनुस्वारस्य इति स्थानानि. So this entire line comes from the Siddhanta Kaumudi Tulyasya Prayatnam Savarnam commentary. Similarly, Abhyantara Prayatna, now this time I have taken it from Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi, from the Tulyasya Prayatnam Savarnam. Why? Because remember that for Abhyantara Prayatnas there are two pakshas. In one paksha there are 5 Abhyantara Prayatnas are taken. In other paksha, there are only 4 abhyantara prayatnas that are taken. Remember the discussion. Panini Maharshi, when he created the sutra, he used the second paksha where 4 abhyantara prayatnas are only used. So in this particular paksha, the sh, sah, ushmanas and the swaras except akara, all of them have vivruta prayatna. There is no ishad vivruta. That is the paksha that is taken by Ashtadhyayi, that is the main sutra patha, and Siddhanta Kaumudi. But in Mahabhashya, in Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi and a bunch of other granthas, a more prominent paksha is taken where 5 abhyantara prayatnas are discussed. So Ushmanas, their abhyantara prayatna is taken as Ishad Vivruta, and the Swaras except for Akara, their abhyantara prayatna is taken as Vivruta, and in the Prakriya Dasha, Akara is also Vivruta. So because we are taking the first paksha of 5 abhyantara prayatnas, the commentary is taken from Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi. So Siddhanta Kaumudyam tu Swaranam Ushmanam cha Abhyantara Prayatna Vivrutaha Ukta asti. But let's see this commentary of Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi. Yatno dvidha abhyantaro bahyascha adhyaha chaturdha sprušteshad vivruta samvruta bhedat tatra adhyaha panchadha sprušteshad vivruta samvruta bhedat. Adhyaha panchadha. What is this thing? Adhyaha panchada sprušteshad vivruta samvruta bheda. There should be here. So adhyaha panchadha sprušteshad vivruta samvruta bhedat. Tatra sprushtam prayatanam sparshanam ishad sprushtam antasthanam ishad vivrutam ushmanam vivrutam swaranam cha ह्रस्वस्य अवर्णस्य प्रयोगे संवृतं प्रक्रियादशायां तु विवृतमेव. And then kadayoho mavasanaha sparshaha. So we use the words like sparsha and antastha and ushma and so on. So let's define them. Kadayo mavasanaha sparshaha yanaha antasthaha shalah ushmanaha achaha swaraha, then jivha mulya upadmanya anuswara visarga and so on. All that was given on a brown paper many classes ago. I expect you have already memorized it, but that's the original source. This is where all those wordings come from. So that's about the mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam and abhyantara prayatnam. Savarna samnyayam nasikayaha chintanam na kriyate. So ka and na are still savarnas. Nakara has an extra nasika. It has a mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam and nasika. That nasika is irrelevant because it is not mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam. So savarna samnyayam nasikayaha chintanam na kriyate yatohi nasika mukhasthitam uchcharana sthanam nasti. And then because we are talking about the abhyantara prayatnas and the uchcharana sthana and so on, let's not keep bahya prayatnas aside. In fact, this is where bahya prayatnas are taught in the commentary. If you study by the traditional method of Siddhanta Kaumudi and Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi, the bahya prayatnas are actually taught in this context, and I don't think this is the right place to teach bahya prayatnas. Therefore, we actually studied it as a separate class earlier. But now, because it is coming in the flow of these commentaries, let me just read those statements once. Again, you already know all of these. Bahya prayatnastu ekadashadha vivaraha samvaraha shvasaha nada ghosha aghosha alpa prana mahaprana udatta anudatta swaritaha. And then the remaining lines will explain which bahya prayatnas are mapped to which varnas. The last line is interesting. Bahya prayatnaha yadyapi savarna samnyayam anupayuktaha. You do not use bahya prayatnas when savaranyam is to be decided. Savaranyam is only to be decided with abhyantara prayatnas, not with bahya prayatnas. So bahya prayatnaha savarna samnyayam anupayuktaha tathapi antaratamya parikshayam upayoksyante. When you have to select one varna out of many similar varnas by doing a similarity test, that is where the bahya prayatnas are used. So in fact, in one of the homeworks, there was a full question on this antaratamya pariksha. Like there are 5 savarnas, ta, tha, da, dha, na, and you have to pick one of them. Or there are 5 ka-vargya letters in tada plus hitam, for example. The h is going to get converted to the savarna of the purva letter. So you have 5 candidates, ta, tha, da, dha, na. You do the bahya prayatna based testing, and then you come up with the final answer of dha by comparing bahya prayatnas. सो बाह्यप्रयत्नाः सवर्णसंज्ञायाम् अनुपयुक्ताः तथापि आन्तरतम्यपरीक्षायां सिमिलारिटी चेकिंग उपयोक्ष्यन्ते, फ्यूचर टेंस विल बी यूज्ड उपयोक्ष्यन्ते इति बोध्यम् इति अत्र तुल्यास्य प्रयत्नं सवर्णम् इत्यत्र उच्चारणस्थानानि आभ्यन्तरप्रयत्नः बाह्यप्रयत्नः इति सर्वे अस्माभिः पठिताः. And then before moving on to the next sutram, let's now actually enlist all the savarnas that we are generated using tulyasa prayatna savarnam. So avarnasya sarve ashtadasha bhedaha parasparanam savarnaha tatheva ivarnasya uvarnasya ruvarnasya luvarnasya dvadasha bhedaha parasparanam savarnaha evarnasya api dvadasha ovarnasya aivarnasya auvarnasya dvadasha bhedaha parasparanam savarnaha. Similarly, क वर्गस्य वर्णाः परस्पराणां सवर्णः तथैव च वर्गस्य ट वर्गस्य त वर्गस्य and प वर्गस्य. य वर्णस्य अनुनासिक निरनुनासिक भेदौ परस्परयोः सवर्णौ तथैव व वर्णस्य ल वर्णस्य. Then we have Vartikam, Rulu Varnayoho Mithas Savarnyam Vachyam. Officially, this Vartika is to be studied in the Tulyasa Prayatnam Savarnam Sutram. So forget about where it is taught in the commentaries. It is a Vartika that defines the Savarna property, whether the two letters are Savarna or not. So it is associated with Tulyasa Prayatnam Savarnam. In fact, if you go to this Sutra Patha, it will actually show the Vartika is associated Ruluvarnayoho Mithas Savarnyam Vachyam with Tulyasa Prayatnam Savarnam Sutram. So Tulyasa Prayatnam Savarnam Ityatra Vidyamanam Vartikam Ruluvarnayor Mithas Savarnyam Vachyam Ruvarnasya Luvarnasya Sarve Bhedaha Parasparanam Savarnaha Santi. Why is this Vartik required? Because the Sutra cannot come up to this conclusion. Rukarasya Uchcharana Sthanam Bhinnam लुकारस्य उच्चारणस्थानं भिन्नम् अतः तुल्यास्य प्रयत्नं सूत्रेणात्र सावर्ण्यं वक्तुं न शक्यते उक्तानुक्तदुरुक्तानां चित्ता यत्र प्रवर्तते तं ग्रन्थं वार्तिकं प्राहुः. So that's anukta part is being clarified over here. रुरुवर्णयोः सावर्ण्यम् अस्ति इति अत्र वार्तिकेन स्पष्टीक्रियते. And then the last point, ए वर्ण and ऐ वर्ण एतयोः उच्चारणस्थानं समानं कण्ठतालु एतयोः अभ्यन्तरप्रयत्नः अपि विवृतः तथापि एतौ परस्परयोः सवर्णौ न. In the same way, O varna and Au varna etau parasparyoho savarnau na. The reason for that, there is no vartikam around it, but the reason for that we are going to study after say 15-20 minutes in this class after the next two sutras are considered. So that's all about Tulyasya Pratnam Savarnam. If there are questions about Tulyasya Pratnam Savarnam, please raise hands. So there's a question over here. Accordingly, two are required. So I am assuming two means Uchcharana Sthanam and Abhyanta Pratna. So yes, you have to test two. You cannot test just one. You must test Uchcharana Sthanam and you must test Bahya Pratna. Both of them must be equal. Okay, no questions. Agre gacchamaha. So the next point is now Savarna Grahanam. So a letter will carry its Savarnas along with it. So Sutre Vidyamanaha Varnaha Yada Swasya Savarnanam Api Nirdesham Karoti Tada Saha Varnaha Savarna Grahanam Karoti Iti Uchyate. So that is the definition of Savarna Grahanam. Now understand this. The next point, I have been stressing this again and again, but now let's officially understand this. What do we mean by Savarna Grahanam? Let's take A. A is going to take all its Savarnas. What are the Savarnas of A? Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, that's the 3. Anunasika, Nirununasika, that's the 2. And Dirgha and Pluta, that's the 2. So a total of 18, and if you keep A aside, so 17. So 17 Varnas are going to come together. 17 Varnas are going to come together when you have a Raswa Niranunasika Udatta Akara. So if you see a Raswa Niranunasika and Udatta Akara, then it's going to take all the 17 together. The interesting point is, it is easy to get a Raswa Akara, it is easy to get a Niranunasika Akara, but it turns out you cannot really understand whether an Akara used in the sutras is Udatta or Anudatta or Swarita. So Raswa Dirgha Pluta, it is easy to understand. It will be written as A versus A versus A. Anunasika, Niranunasika is also easy to understand. Pronunciation differs, writing material style also differs. But what happens is, as far as the sutras are concerned, so if you take say Ayuna as a Shiva Sutram, or if you take even Ashtadhyayi sutras like Vruddhiradaish, Adenguna and so on, all these sutras are given in Ashtadhyayi without any particular swaras. So Ashtadhyayi सामान्य रूपेण एकश्रुत्या पाठिता अस्ति. सामान्य रूपेण किमर्थं? मध्ये मध्ये कुत्रचित् अनुवृत्तेः निर्देशार्थम् अधिकारस्य च निर्देशार्थं स्वरितस्वरः प्रयुज्यते, परन्तु सामान्य रूपेण एकश्रुत्या पाठिता अस्ति. And what is the proof of that? The proof of that is there are sutras in Ashtadhyayi that will tell the swaras of the adeshas or agamas. So for example, there is a sutram Chaturanaduho Ramudattaha. I'm just taking a random sutram. Chaturanaduho Ramudattaha, which will say Chatur Shabdasya Anaduha Shabdasya cha Am Agamaha Bhavati, and that is Udatta. Now, if Ashtadhyayi was written in the swara manner with Udatta Anudatta Swarita, Panini Maharshi could have directly given Am with an Udatta tone. There was no need to say Am Udattaha. The very fact that he says Am is Udatta indicates, obviously, this is not just one example, there will be many examples. So, for example, Adyudattascha Sutram says, Pratyyaha sarve Adyudattaha santi. All the pratyas in Ashtadhyayi by default will have their first swara as Udatta. Now, there was no need of giving this sutras. Panini Maharshi could have actually given that pratyaya as an udatta first swara in the sutra itself. The very fact that he doesn't do any of those is a strong hint that Ashtadhyayi swaraihi vina pathita asti, ekashrutya pathita asti. And therefore, when you say ikoyanachi and when you look at the E of ik, it is not a specific udatta, anudatta or swarita ikara. It is a general ikara which represents all of them or which represents whatever is appropriate. So सूत्रेषु निर्दिष्टाः अकारादिवर्णाः कस्यापि उदात्तादिभेदस्य विशेषरूपेण निर्देशं न कुर्वन्ति. अच् इत्यादिषु प्रत्याहारेषु विद्यमानः अकारः उदात्तादिविशिष्टभेदयुक्तः नास्ति. And therefore, when you are saying, I want to do Savarna Grahanam, you cannot really say an Udatta is going to take Anudatta along with it, or an Anudatta is going to take Swarita along with it. That kind of language no more makes sense, because you cannot identify whether a given Swara is Udatta or Anudatta or Swarita or whatever. So, Ach ityatra vidyamanaha akaraha niranunasikaha asti iti spashtam. Raswaha asti iti spashtam. Why? Because in Ashtadhyayi, you can clearly see sutras like where Panini Maharshi mentions swaras with Anunasika letter. Whether it is Chandrabindu or whether it's spoken with a nasal tone is a different story. But there are sutras which will specifically have an Anunasika tone associated with it when Panini Maharshi wants to say that. So when there is a reference to Acha, it is clear that it is Niranunasika. Similarly, it is clear that that akara is Raswa. We are not hearing A, we are hearing A. So, Acha ityatra vidyamanaha akaraha niranunasikaha asti iti spashtam, Raswaha asti iti spashtam, parantu udattaha asti, uta anudattaha asti, uta swaritaha asti, eteshu vishishtasya bhedasya asti, anyasya bhedasya nasti iti vaktum na shakyate. And therefore, when you are saying, I want to do Savarna Grahanam, you can be sure that you are bringing the Nasika Kruta Bheda and you are bringing the Kala Kruta Bheda, but you cannot say anything about the Swara Kruta Bheda. They are already there and they are not there. It's like that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. It's there and it's not there. We don't know that. So, Savarna Grahanasya Chintanasya Samaye, वर्णानां नासिकाकृतभेदस्य चिन्तनं क्रियते, कालकृतभेदस्य अपि चिन्तनं क्रियते, उदात्तादिभेदानाम् अविशेषत्वेन ग्रहणं भवति, अतः तेषां चिन्तनं सवर्णग्रहणसमये न भवति. As soon as you start saying that it will bring anudatta along with it, you need to say that what was there was either udatta or anudatta or swarita, but you cannot say that. Therefore, you cannot say it will bring anudatta with it will bring udatta with it, and so on. Ataha akarah savarnagrahणं करोति इत्यस्य अर्थाः akaरेण सर्वेपि सवर्णाः गृह्यन्ते. So savarna grahanam karoti means what? Udatta will also come, anudatta will also come, swarita will also come. You don't know which will come, but all of them are going to come. So eventually the final number is going to be 18. That's not doubt. You cannot enumerate them, but the final number will be 18. But when you say akaraha savarna grahanam na karoti, you cannot eliminate the others. You can only eliminate anudatta when you know that the original was not anudatta. You cannot do that. सो अकारः सवर्णग्रहणं न करोति इत्यस्य अर्थः अकारेण नासिकाकृतभेदाः कालकृतभेदाः च न गृह्यन्ते इति अस्ति. And therefore, for all practical purposes, in entire Ashtadhyayi, in entire course that we are going to study ahead, we will ignore the swarakruta bhedaha as far as the savarna grahanam is concerned. So for all the practical discussion going ahead, savarna grahanam will only be referenced in the context of nasika kruta bhedas and the kala kruta bhedas. The swara kruta bhedaha are all out of context. So with this particular background, now let us understand the sutram that actually does the savarna grahanam. Anudit savarnasya cha pratyayaha. So somebody is saying only dvadasha bhedaha in the previous slide. So that's what I said. The reason why I am saying ashtadasha savarnaha grihyante and not dvadasha is because when you are doing a positive affirmation that savarna grahanam bhavati, whether the new entity is udatta, anudatta, swarita, it will be brought. So you definitely know it will be brought. You just don't know what it is, but it will be brought. But when you have to negate it, you cannot say anything like that. But forget about it. If you don't agree or understand or appreciate that, you can just ignore that. You can say akarena dvadasha savarnaha guriyante. That's also acceptable. Let's keep the bhedas, the swar udatta anudatta swarita bhedas aside for now. So the sutram that does the savarna grahanam, anudit savarnasya cha pratyayaha. The sutra is a little complex to understand. So let's pay attention. Avidhiyamanaha an विधीयमानः अविधीयमानः च उदित सवर्णस्य संज्ञा स्यात्. कः अर्थः? उद्देश्य सरल भाषायाम् अर्थम् आदौ वदामि. उद्देश्य रूपेण प्रयुक्ताः अणवर्णाः. So akara, ikara, ukara, rukara, and so on. Also ya, va, la. Uddeshya rupena. This point is important. Uddeshya rupena prayuktaha anvarnaha. तथा च उद्देश्य रूपेण विधेय रूपेण वा प्रयुक्तानि कु छु टु तु पु अक्षराणि. So ku chu tu tu pu ukara sahita aksharani, only the first of the row. These may be uddeshyam or vidheyam, doesn't matter. So uddeshya rupena vidheya rupena va prayuktani etani aksharani. And as far as ana is concerned, only uddeshya rupena. I have taught this in the previous class, but let's understand with the sutra now. Ete sarve savarna grahanam kurvanti. So let's understand the padacheda. That's where a little bit complexity comes. Anudit savarnasya cha apratyayaha. Anudit is 1.1. I missed that. Let's add that. Anudit is 1.1. Savarnasya is 6.1. Cha is avyaya, so 0.0. And apratyayah is again 1.1. So anudit savarnasya cha apratyayah. The anuvrutti swam rupam shabdasya shabda samnya. So anudit savarnasya cha pratyayah is also anudit savarnasya cha pratyay is also in the same area. So it takes the immediately previous sutram swam rupam shabdasya shabda samnya. It takes the anuvrutti of swam and rupam. षष्ठा विपरिणम्यते. सो स्वं तथा रूपम एतौ शब्दौ पूर्वस्मात् सूत्रात् स्वीकृत्य षष्ठा विपरिणम्यते. एंड देयरफॉर अप्रत्ययः अणुदित्. सो अंडरस्टैंड दिस. अप्रत्ययः अणुदित् सवर्णस्य स्वस्य रूपस्य च. So now any anudit which is characterized by the property of being a pratyaya, I'm going to explain what that is, but it is characterized by a property of being a pratyaya, indicates or takes savarnas and its own form. So the word savarna will here mean something else. You don't say X is a friend of X. You usually say X is a friend of Y. Technically, it doesn't matter. But in this particular sutra, two different letters are being compared as savarnas. So, swasya rupasya is taken as anuvritti, and we will say apratyah anudit, which basically means uddeshya rupena prayujyamanaha savarnasya tatha swasya cha rupasya grahakaha bhavati. इदं परिभाषा सूत्रमस्ति. वर्णाः सवर्णान् कदा गृह्णन्ति इति संशये जाते अनया परिभाषया इत्यस्य उत्तरं दीयते. And what is anudit? An ch udit ch anayoho samaharaha. An is the an pratyaharaha. Udit is the entities with ukara in them. Only 5 of them. I mean, you can have any random entity with an ukara, but for this particular sutram, it is 5 of them. Ku, chu, tu, tu, pu. So the an pratyahara, which is with the paranakara, and the ku, chu, tu, tu, pu, anayoho samaharaha anudit iti asti. Pratyaya, there is a negation of that in this particular sutram. The word pratyaya over here has nothing to do with su aujas pratyayas. So the word pratyaya in this sutra has nothing to do with prakriti pratyaya thing. The word pratyaya in this sutra means vidhiyamanaha or vidheyaha. So the word pratyaya is being broken down as pratiyate saha pratyayaha, vidhiyate saha pratyayaha. So it is a vidhiyamanaha, bhavyamanaha. It is the one that comes as the vidheya. So any entity that comes as the vidheya is called pratyaya. That is being negated. So apratyaya, which means non-vidheya, which means uddeshya. So what kind of anudit is being discussed? It is being discussed an anudit which is apratyaya, which means it is uddeshya. But remember, the sutrartha that we eventually want to get to is uddeshya rupena prayuktaha anvarnaha and uddeshya vidheya rupena prayuktaha udit. So that apratyaya negation cannot be applied to the udit component. Udit may be pratyaya or apratyaya, it is going to do savarna grahanam. It is ana which must be apratyaya, which must be non-vidheya, that is, it must be uddeshya. And therefore, pratyayaha iti shabdaha, and therefore paryayana apratyayaha iti shabdaha api kevalam an ityanena sah anveti, udit ityanena sah na anveti. Even though anudit is a samasta padam, the pratyaya part which is sitting outside of that samasta padam is only applicable to ana part, not to udit part. So this is clear from vyakhyanas. So vyakhyanato vishesha pratipattihi. So idam vyakhyanat spashtam yat pratyayaha iti shabdaha kevalam ana ityanena sah eva anveti, udit ityanena sah na anveti. And therefore, if you break down that anudit so that the ana part now can go along with apratyaya, अन्वयस्य आधारेण सिद्धा सूत्रार्थः कः? अप्रत्ययः अण means an ana which is only uddeshya, udit cha. So that apratyaya is only associated with ana, udit cha. A general reference to udit will mean uddesha as well as vidheya. So apratyayah ana udit cha savarnasya swasya rupasya cha grahakaha bhavati. What is this avidhi apratyayah ana? Saha anaha yaha vidhiyamanaha nasti ityukte yaha uddeshya rupena prayuktaha vartate अत्र अण् इति प्रत्याहारः परेण णकारेण इति व्याख्यानात् स्पष्टं. सो व्याख्यानतो विशेषप्रतिपत्तिः. In fact, in व्याख्यानतो विशेषप्रतिपत्तिः explanation itself, this particular sutram is given as an example. We have studied this. So अण इति प्रत्याहारः पूर्वणकारेण कदा परणकारेण कदा इति संशये जाते व्याख्यानस्य अध्ययनं करणीयं. व्याख्याने किमुच्यते? अणुदित सूत्रे परणकारेण अन्यत्र पूर्वणकारेण. So I have taught you this. I think it was there in one of the homeworks also. So अण प्रत्याहारः परेण णकारेण इति व्याख्यानात् स्पष्टं, and therefore expand that अण a I u ru, expand as it is, don't include other bhedas. So a I u ru lu a I o au h y v r. So all these are ana letters. They ete yada उद्देश्य रूपेण प्रयुज्यन्ते, अप्रत्यय रूपेण प्रयुज्यन्ते, तदा ते सर्वेषां सवर्णानाम् अपि ग्रहणं कुर्वन्ति. सो अण् प्रत्याहारस्थ वर्णाः उद्देश्य रूपेण प्रयुज्यन्ते चेत् सर्वेषां सवर्णानामपि ग्रहणं कुर्वन्ति. दैट इज अप्रत्ययः. विधेय रूपेण प्रयुज्यते चेत् सवर्णानां ग्रहणं न कुर्वन्ति. And the udit, whether it is uddeshya or videya, it will also include savarna. So I'll give those examples on the next slide. Here, iko yanachi iti sutram asya udaharana rupena ik varnaha and ach varnaha uddeshya rupena prayuktaha asti. So savarna grahanam kurvanti. So ik will include dirgha akara even though it is not there in that expansion. Similarly, achi will include dirgha akara even though it is not there in that expansion. So that's the engine taking the compartments along with it. So nadi asit ityatra api anadeshah sambhavati. Nadi ityatra dirgha ikaraha tasya grahanam hrasva ikarena kriyate. Asit ityatra akarah tasya grahanam akarena kriyate. So atra savarna grahanam bhavati. Parantu yana iti vidhiyamanaha ya. So ya, va, ra are all in that ana. So that vidhiyamanaha savarna grahanam na karoti. अतः यकारादिभिः अनुनासिक भेदस्य ग्रहणं न भवति. So that's a single sutra where you can actually see pratyaya and apratyaya both in action. And there is a next example, tyadadi nama. I think I have given these examples in one of the previous classes as well. So tyadadi namaha atra akaraha adesha rupena vidhiyate. So tyadadi ganasya shabdanam akaradeshah bhavati. So this akara is the vidheya. It will not do savarna grahanam. अतः अत्र त्यदादीनामः इत्यत्र अकारेण अनुनासिक अकारस्य ग्रहणं न भवति, आकारस्य अपि ग्रहणं न भवति. So this aspect that in the tyadadinamah is a videya, it will not include the anunasik akara, it will not include akara, will be used in the complex subanta prakriyas. Probably we will not learn those, but in the derivation of words like idam and so on, this particular topic is being used. And remember, again, I am stressing this again and again because this is a general point of confusion. Savarnanam grahanam na kurvanti ityukte nasikakruta bhedanam kalakruta bhedanam cha grahanam na kurvanti. Udattadi bhedanam atra chintanam nasti yato hi sutreshu vidyamanaha varnaha udattadi vishishta bhedam na darshayanti. So that was all about ana, and then we have also udita, kuchu, tu, tu, pu. These are called udita. उकारः इत, उकारः अनुबन्धः यस्मिन् सः उदित् इति तस्य निर्देशः क्रियते. So in ku, chu, tu, tu, pu, the ukar is considered as ita samyaka again by the parampara, and therefore they are called udita. Ayam uditaha nityam savarna grahanam karoti. उद्देश्य रूपेण विहितः तु करोति एव, परन्तु विधेय रूपेण विहितः अपि करोति. The example is choho kuhu. Choho is the shashti ekvachanam of chu. Kuhu is the prathama ekvachanam of ku. Choho is the uddeshyam. Kuhu is the vidheyam. But in both cases there is savarna grahanam. So chu iti uddeshyam tena savarna grahanam bhavati. Ku iti vidheyam tena savarna grahanam bhavati. And therefore chakarasya sthane kakaraha, jakarasya sthane gakaraha. All this is taught. These are basically examples which you already know. I have only taught. The new thing that is taught in this particular discussion is the sutrartha and the commentary associated with that. One last point to remember, kevalam अणप्रत्याहारस्य वर्णाः एव सवर्णग्रहणं कुर्वन्ति, अणप्रत्याहारात् बहिः विद्यमानाः वर्णाः सवर्णग्रहणं न कुर्वन्ति. So if you just take k, it will not do the savarna grahanam. Similarly, if you take a, it will not do the savarna grahanam. Crucial point to understand, because a is not in the anapratyahara. Anapratyahara is a, e, ru, lu, and so on. A is not there. So a will bring a, but there is no possibility of a doing the savarna grahanam. Anapratyahara प्रत्याहारात् बहिः विद्यमानाः वर्णाः सवर्णग्रहणं न कुर्वन्ति. सो क इत्यनेन सवर्णग्रहणं न भवति, आ इत्यनेन प्लुत अकारेण सवर्णग्रहणं न भवति. And similarly, रुलुवर्णयोः मिथः सावर्ण्यं वाच्यं. So ru varna and lu varna are savarnas, and therefore rukarena lukarasya api grahanam bhavati. So in the sutram urantraparaha, there is this uhu component, which is the shashti ekavachana of ru. So it is the uddeshya and it indicates ru. Like pitru becomes pituhu. In the same way, ru becomes uhu. So this is the shashti ekavachanam of ru. That ru will indicate lu also. Lukarasya api tatra grahanam kriyate. I will probably need 20 more minutes, but we'll take a question. Vidyaji.
It's probably answered already. When ku is specified, does it mean only the Varga Prathamas take the Savarnam? It is, in your example, you showed Jakarasya Gakaraha Bhavati iti. So I think it's answered.
Because ku will indicate all five. So,
Okay.
Ratnakar Mahoday.
Acharya, namaste. You have been saying that vidheyam, vidhi and all these things in connection with apratyayaha. So, if I have to understand the word vidheyam, wherever there is an action or wherever there is a karyam to be done, there it is apratyayaha. Where no karya is specified, that is apratyayaha. Is that so?
No. So kind of. So basically, whenever there is a karya specified, that is a pratyaya. And whenever a karya is not specified, in the sense the other entities are given, like the left nimitta, the purva nimitta, the para nimitta, and so on, that is apratyaya. So when you say karya is not specified, something will be there, right? Or something will have to be specified. It cannot be an empty sutra. So then that is apratyaya. Okay?
Right.
There is a question over here. Ka ityanena savarna grahanam na bhavati. I'm not sure I understand. Here. See, ka ityanena savarna grahanam na bhavati. The fundamental point to understand in the sutra is that who does savarna grahanam? Random things are not going to do savarna grahanam. It should be in ana pratyahara to do savarna grahanam. So, a will do savarna grahanam. E will do savarna grahanam. But normal ka will not do savarna grahanam. Ka has savarnas. So ka, kha, ga, gha, nga are all savarnas. But unlike a, which brings a and all other bhedas along with it, ka is not going to bring kha along with it. That is the reason why a special uditta treatment is being given. Ku is different and ka is different. If you say ku, it is going to do the savarna grahanam because there is udit component in the anudit sutram. If you say ka is not udit and ka is not in ana, so ka cannot do savarna grahanam. That's the point. Geeta Bhagini.
Mohoday, Nadi plus Asti, go to that slides.
Here.
Mohoday, I mean, like, I didn't understand this. Ekaradhivi anunasika bedasya grahanam na bhavati. Like, Nadi asit, Nadhyasit.
Correct.
I mean, like, I understand that, but where this yakaradhivihi means...
No. In Iko Yanachi Sutram, there are three components. Ika, Yana, and Acha. The Yana is Vidheya. So it will not do Savarna Grahanam, which means Ya will not include Anunasikaya. Is all that I'm saying.
Yeah,
not in this example. I welcome all the questions, but there are two more things that we want to discuss. I'm sorry, but we have to continue. Okay. Now, there is a very crucial question that I want to take up at the moment. because we are now in a position to understand this, and please pay attention. एकार ऐकारयोः उच्चारणं कण्ठतालु अस्ति, एकार ऐकारयोः अभ्यन्तर प्रयत्नः विवृतः अस्ति. So in spite of this, why are we continuously saying that ekara and aikara are not savarnas? Similarly, why are we saying okara and aukara are not savarnas? And I also insisted that there is no vartika for that. If there is a vartika, it would make it clear. But there is no vartika, there is no clear statement, and still we are stressing the fact that ekara, aikara are savarnas, are not savarnas, okara, aukara are not savarnas. Why? So the answer is very interesting. The answer is hidden in how this Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyaya Sutra is constructed. Pay close attention. What is happening over here? In Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyaya, it is the Ana entity that does the Savarna Grahanam. So Ana acts as the engine of our train. What is inside Ana? Go back to the previous slide, and inside Ana we have A, E, U, Ru, Lu, A, I, O, Au. So A and I are separately present in Ana. O and Au are separately present in Ana. Now hypothetically, if A and I were savarnas of each other, then the train that has A as the engine will automatically take I, and therefore there was no need of having I in the anapratyahara. Similarly, there was no need of having Au in the anapratyahara. But anapratyahara has I and Au. This is a strong indication that they are distinct entities. They are not savarnas of each other. So the commentaries do this kind of inference, this kind of analysis, and then they say that यदि एकार ऐकारौ तथैव ओकार औकारौ सवर्णौ अभविष्यतां तर्हि अण् प्रत्याहारे विद्यमानेन एकारेण एव ऐकारस्य ग्रहणे जाते तथैव ओकारेण एव औकारस्य ग्रहणे जाते अण् प्रत्याहारे ऐकारस्य औकारस्य च ग्रहणं व्यर्थं स्यात्. व्यर्थं सत् ज्ञापयति यत् एकारेण ऐकारस्य ओकारेण औकारस्य ग्रहणं न भवति अतएव एकार ऐकारौ ओकार औकारौ च सवर्णौ न. So this is in fact a strong logical argument, but there is another point. Mahabhashyakara goes one step ahead and he says that the aikara and aukara, their vabhyanta prayatnas are different at the first place. So we are saying ekara is vivruta, aikara is vivruta, okara is vivruta, aukara is vivruta. But Bhashyakara says that ekara and aukara, there are, sorry, aikara and aukara, the second part, the aikara and aukara, their abhyantara prayatnas are vivrutatara. So this is different than vivruta. And in fact, in the Paniniya Shiksha, ekara okara are called vivrutatara. Aikar aukara are called tasmadapi vivrutatara. So in the vivruta category, there are gradations. The ekara aukara is at one level, and sorry, the ekara okara is at one level, and aikara aukara is at another level. And so if you zoom in, you will see that their abhyantara prayatnas are different, and therefore they are not savarnas. So on one way, by simply seeing the presence of aikara and aukara in the Anudit Sutram, you can predict that A and I are not savarnas. Similarly, O and Au are not savarnas. And then Bhashyakara clearly has a fine difference in their abhyantara prayatnas. Therefore, again, they are not savarnas. So that's all about the Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyayaha. I have another sutram, so I will not take any questions at the moment. But the next sutram is the Taparastatkalasya. It is about the Savarna Grahana Niyamanam. So Taha Paraha Yasmat Saha Tat Parasya Ucharyamanaha Samakalasya Eva Samyasyat. Sutram is known to you, the meaning is known. Yasmat Varnat Anantaram Athva Purvam त इति व्यञ्जनं स्थापितमस्ति सः वर्णः अविधीयमानः सन् अपि. So if it is विधीयमान, anyway there is no savarna ग्रहणम्. अविधीयमानः सन् अपि सर्वेषां भेदानां ग्रहणं न करोति अपि तु समकालस्य भेदानाम् एव ग्रहणं करोति। अत इत्यनेन षड्ह्रस्वभेदाः एव गृह्यन्ते, दीर्घप्लुतभेदाः न गृह्यन्ते। तपरः तत्कालस्य, the padacheda is simple. Taparaha tatkalasya, swam and rupam come as an anuvritti, just like the way previous sutram. Savarnasya and ana are also as anuvrittis, because anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya is being controlled. So everything from anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya comes as an anuvritti, which is relevant. So taparaha ana tatkalasya savarnasya swasya cha rupasya. So the important part is a taparaha and tatkalasya. The tapara entity and only does tatkalika grahanam. For whom? For ana, because it is the ana whose savarna grahanam is being discussed in the previous sutra. And then how is that ana doing savarna grahanam? By doing savarnasya and swasya cha rupasya. So everything comes in this sutra so that a full sentence can be made. Taparaha and savarnasya swasya cha rupasya nirdeshakaha nochit grahakaha. And this is the niyama sutram. What is a niyama sutram? Siddhe sati arambha niyamartha. Something is already told. So the previous sutra already says a will include all 18. We are restricting that. We are saying Vida Takara, it is not all 18, but it is only 6 of them. So 6 were already told, only 12 are to be removed. So that is the Siddhe Sati Arambha Niyamartha. पूर्वसूत्रस्य प्रयोगं कृत्वा अणप्रत्याहारेण तात्कालिक अतात्कालिक भेदानां ग्रहणे सिद्धे पुनः तपरकरणं नियमार्थं तपरः अण तात्कालिक भेदस्यैव ग्राहकः कालकृत भेदस्य ग्राहकः नास्ति. Somebody is asking a question. We are bringing ana as an anuvritti. Does it also mean that we do taparkaranam for ya, va and la? Technically you can, but you don't see that particular examples in any sutras, or at least I cannot remember it off my head. Never studied it in or don't recollect it at the moment. But technically you can do the taparkaranam for ya, va, la. It is only theoretical. You don't have practical applications for that. So this is basically the तपरकरणम अन्वयस्य आधारेण सिद्धा सूत्रार्थः यः अणवर्णः तपरः अस्ति सः स्वकालवाचक भेदानामेव ग्रहणं करोति, अन्य कालवाचक भेदानां ग्रहणं न करोति. अणुदित सवर्णस्य इत्यनेन वर्णैः सवर्णग्रहणे प्राप्ते तस्य नियमनार्थं कंट्रोलिंग इदं सूत्रं स्थापितमस्ति. And then we all know, this is already taught, taparaha iti dvidha vibhajyate. So ta can come after or ta can come before. So tat paraha saha taparaha. Saha varnaha yaha ta ityasmad anantaram vidyate. So this is panchami vigraha. Tat paraha. So in vruddhiradaich, it is ta aich. So it is the tat paraha. In adengunaha, it is ta eng. So it is tat paraha. That will also do the savarna grahana niyamanam. So that is also taparakaranam. And taparaha yasmat saha. So in adengunaha, it is at. So that's tatparaha. In a sutram called uto vruddhir luki hali, it is the utta is the again taparaha. So that's taha paraha yasmat saha. This is the bahuvrihi. So you can do the tatpurusha vigraha tatparaha. You can also do the bahuvrihi vigraha taha paraha. So dyaha varnaha taparaha asti tasya nirdeshah taparakaranam iti shabdena kriyate. At ityatra akarasya taparakaranam krutamasti. This is, so we always say, instead of saying taparasya kalasya sutram prayuktam, we say taparakaranam krutamasti. So that taparakaranam swakalika bhedanam eva grahanam karoti iti asya sutrasya ashayah. There is another question over here. Will it take the anunasika bheda in taparakaranam? So yes, tatkalasya, which means everything that can be categorized as rasva will be brought over here. So anunasika bhedas will also be included because they are tatkalika bhedaha. Any further questions? There are 2 important points and then we are done. Just 2 more slides, but any questions before that? Ratnakar Mahoday.
Namaste, Acharya. Acharya, actually, the discussion was whether A and I can be Savarna or not. Similarly, O and Au can be Savarna or not. But at a particular point, you said that A and O, yeah, A, O have a Vivruta Taraha, and similarly, I and O are Vivruta. Why that? It should have been A and I are Vivruta Taraha, and O are Vivruta Taraha.
No. So A and I come in pair, O and Au come in pair. The two members of each pair have different abhyantara prayatna. So A is Vivruta, I is Vivruta Tar. Similarly, O is Vivruta, Au is Vivruta Tar, and therefore they are not Savarnas. That's the point. It's written over here. Okay. Sudhavalli ji.
Namaskara, Mahoday.
Namaste.
Maybe A and I, O and O are the combination of this and E. That is I. That component is there. Maybe the presence of that in A, I. They are the combination of A and A and E. No.
That doesn't matter because Uchcharana Sthanam is still Kanthatalu. Don't read into things. It's all about Uchcharana Sthana and Abhyantara Prayatna. Don't, first of all, it's same, right?
Abhyantara Prayatna, A Varna is Samvrita because there is a component of A in A and I, O and O. Maybe the reason why they are different.
So why is
they
A
are
plus
not
E A? Why not A plus E? A plus E is also A, right? So then your equation completely changes, right? So why would you take A plus E? You can take A plus E, and you can take A plus Pluta E also, or Pluta A plus E also. You can do whatever you want. So I think we discussed this point at much earlier point in the course, that you should not break these varnas, and it's like hydrogen and oxygen combined together for water. The properties of hydrogen and oxygen are not imparted to water. It's exactly like that. I think I mentioned this. I don't know this course or some other, but I discussed this, that you shouldn't break it apart. Okay, so take it as a distinct entity. Okay, as far as the Uchcharana Sthanam, or as far as the Abhyantara Prayatna is concerned. Okay. There's a question, is it related to Guna Samnya, Vruddhi Samnya? I'm not sure. I mean, A, I are not Savarnas and so on. So that topic is related to Guna Samnya and Vruddhi Samnya. So in Adeng Gunaha, A will not include I and so on. But I'm not sure I understand the question. Anyway, we'll come to that later, a little later. I'll cover up two important points of 10 more minutes probably. It turns out that I have been saying all along that this Taparas Tatkalasya is a Niyama Sutram because it restricts the Anudit Savarna Vidhi. A Niyama will always restrict something. So Anudit Savarna has given some paribhasha, and that paribhasha or that way of creating Savarnas is being restricted in the Taparas Tatkalasya. It turns out not everyone agrees to that. So Kashikakara says that this is a Vidhi Sutram. Taparas Tatkalasya has no relation with Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyaha. It is not doing any Niyamanam. It is simply doing a Vidhi. What kind of Vidhi? So it says that when you do Atta, all that Atta is saying is bring the Tatkalika Bhedas of Akara. Don't bring Anudit Savarnasya Sutram in the picture at all. If you bring Anudit Savarnasya Sutram in the picture at all, then you will say A is bringing all 18, and then I add a Ta, and then that set gets restricted, and therefore it is a Niyama Sutra. Don't do all that circus. Just treat Taparas Tatkalasya as a standalone Sutram, and all that it says is whatever entity is being tapared, that is, whatever entity has a ta around it, that will do tatkalika grahanam. So taparaha varnaha tatkalasya ityukte atmana tulyakalasya gunantara yuktasya. Gunantara yukta means udatta, anudatta, swarita, anunasika, nirunasika. Other gunas are okay as long as the kala is not changed. So anytime you see ata, it has nothing to do with savarna grahana blocking and so on. It is purely on a. And a, when it comes with ta, it will indicate tatkalasya savarnasya grahakaha swasya cha rupasya. So there is no ana. As soon as you bring the anuvrutti of ana from the previous sutram, it causes a niyama. Why? Because that ana from the previous sutram is used to do the entire savarna grahanam, and now on the same ana we are repeatedly telling the savarna grahanam siddhe sati arambha niyamartha. But if there was no anuvrutti of ana at all, then there is no question of niyamanam. It is purely vidhyartham. What a beautiful thought. So idam sutram vidhi sutram asti iti kashikakarasya matam. So what is the difference in the two pakshas? The vidhi sutra paksha, that is in the kashika, says anudit sutrat ana ityasya anuvrittihi na kriyate savarna grahanasya vishayaha api nasti ataha idam vidhyartham. कोऽपि वर्णः तपरः अस्ति चेत् स्वकालवाचकभेदानामेव ग्रहणं करोति, अन्यवाचकालवाचकभेदानां ग्रहणं न करोति इति सरलः अर्थः. So somebody says this is very simple. This is Kashika Paksha. In this Paksha, and understand this, in this Paksha, At suddenly has a value. At will mean Tatkalika Bhedas of A, which is basically Dirgha Varjan. What happens in the Niyama Sutra Paksha? Let me remind you that. In the Niyama Sutra Paksha, An Pratyahara was doing all 18. So Tatkalika Bhedanam, Atatkalika Bhedanam cha grahane jate, Tatkalasya eva iti Niyamartham tat sutram asti. That was the Kaumudi Paksha. So in Kaumudi Paksha, the Tapara Karanam on the Dirgha letters makes no sense. So Ata, Ita, Ota, इत्यादिषु तकारः उच्चारणार्थः अस्ति. Why? Because A was not doing savarna grahanam, so there was no need to do any niyamanam, but still ta is present, so that is mukha sukhartha, or that is ucharanartha. So Ata, Ita, Ota इत्यादिषु तकारः अतात्का केवलम् उच्चारणार्थः अस्ति, यतोहि अतात्कालिकभेदानां ग्रहणमत्र न क्रियते, तस्य नियमनमपि न आवश्यकम्. On the other hand, in the Kashika frame of reference, if it is taken as a Vidhi Sutra, then Ata means all Rasva, Ata means all Dirgha. So Asmin Pakshe Ata, Ita, Ota ityadishu takaraha Tatkalika Bheda Grahanartaha. So this is actually the difference. There is actually much more to it. There is a concept of Jati Paksha versus Vyakti Paksha, but I don't want you to go into any of those details. For now, it is sufficient to understand. Let's just go to this Sutram Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyaha and the Taparastat Kalasya. See what Kashikakara says. Kashikakara says, Vidyarthamidam An iti na anuvartate. Whereas Siddhanta Kaumudi says Samakalasya eva samnyasyat. Eva indicates it is a Niyama Sutram. It might be created, it might be explained in Bala Manorama. Siddhe sati arambha niyamartha iti nyayena sutramidam niyamartham sampadyate. So there is a difference in the Kashika and Kaumudi Paksha. The ironical thing is the Kashikakara forgets his Paksha once in a while. So if you now go to Vruddhi Radaish, what is the sutra, what is the breakup of Vruddhi Radaish? Vruddhihi At Aich. Now suddenly in the Kashika Paksha, At will start meaning something. Remember, we in Kaumudi, the At is only for Ucharanartha, because Ta is only for the Aicha. We have studied this in the previous class. But in the Kashika Paksha, now At will suddenly start meaning something. But Kashikakara forgets his own interpretation. When he gives his commentary, he says Tapar Karnam Aijartham. So he says Tapar Karnam is only for Aijartham, it is not for A. So there is usually some sort of contradiction within the commentaries, but that's just for fun. That's just what I told for understanding. Important point to understand is in the Kashika context and in the Kaumudi context, the interpretation of the sutra is different. The question is, what answers do you accept in the homework? there will not be a question on whether this is a Niyama Sutram or Vidhi Sutram. In fact, there is a question in the homework today which will ask you to compare and contrast the Kashika Paksha versus Kaumudi Paksha. But in general, in this particular course, we will take the Kaumudi Paksha. We will say it is the Niyama Sutra. That is the reason why in one of the previous classes where I taught the Parakaranam, I taught it is Niyama Sutra. Throughout today's class, I was saying again and again it is Niyama Sutra. Only on this slide, when I'm showing other side of the coin, I told you it is Vidhi Sutra. So for all practical purposes in this sutra, in this course, we will consider this as the Niyama Sutra only. There is a question, does it make a difference whether it is a Niyama or a Vidhi Sutra in the Prakriya? So I have explained this in one of the previous classes also. These 6 types, Samnya versus Paribhasha, Vidhi, Niyam, are only for our own understanding. There is absolutely no relevance in the Prakriya for any of this. So Samnya, Paribhasha, Vidhi, Niyama is purely for our understanding. Now is a very interesting topic. This is not the right time to talk about it. One of my favorites, but I'm going to take 5 minutes and talk about it. How are Varnas culture, how they become ready for Vyakarana Shastra? So understand that when you are using the Ana in Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyayaha, it does not include Savarnas, because Ana will include Savarnas by this sutra. So when Ana is being used in this sutra, it is not including Savarnas. But when you use that Ana in other sutras like Urandra Paraha, that Ana now already automatically includes Savarnas. So Varnas have been developed sequentially in a certain stepwise manner, in a certain process, so that Varnas, when they are in the process of development, do not include Savarnas. Once they are fully developed and usable in other sutras, will start including Savarnas. So that process is called Varna Samskaraha. Bhashyakara very beautifully explains it. Just this is very easy to understand actually. Just read it. Varnanam Upadeshaha Tavatu. So the first thing is the Varnas are told to you. How are Varnas made ready? So like a food item, ingredients are brought together, all the processing is done, packaging is done, labeling is done, and finally the box is ready for you. In the same way, what happens? Varnanam Upadeshaha Tavat. In the first step, the Maheshwara Sutras will do the Upadesha of the Varna. The Upadesha is for all the Kala Kruta, Swara Kruta, Uchcharana Sthana Kruta. So basically, when you study A, I, Una, you study the letter A. Your teacher says that A comes in multiple flavors, Udatta, Anudatta, Swarita, Anunasika, Nirunasika, and Rasva, Dirgha, Pluta. It is not there in the Shiva Sutra, but the flavors exist. So the flavors are taught to you. So Varnanam Adau Upadeshaha Bhavati, Ai Una Ityadibhi Sutraihi. Tadanantaram Itsamnya Bhavati. The Anubandhas are created. So A Una Na is Anubandha, Ruluka Ka is Anubandha, Eonga Nga is Anubandha. So all these Anubandhas are defined. Because once the Varnas and Anubandhas are defined, only then Pratyaharas can be created. So first step, Varnanam Upadeshaha. Then Upadeshottara Kala Itsamnya. Itsamnya Uttara Kalaha Adirantyena Saheta iti Pratyaharaha. So now you take Ana. At this stage, Ana only includes A, E and U because Savarna Grahanam is not yet taught. See the sequence. First, the Varnas are taught. Then the Anubandhas are taught. Then the Anubandhas combine with the Varnas to form Pratyahara. So Ana only includes A, E, U. Or if you take the next Ana, then A, E, U, Ru, Lu and so on. Ikka only includes E, U, Ru, Lu and so on. This is how the Pratyaharas are created. Pratyaharaihi Adivarnasya Itsamnyaka Bhinnanam Madhyaganam cha Grahanam Bhavati. Ye Varnaha Shivasutreshu na santi te Pratyahare api na svikriyate. Therefore, Ach Pratyahare at this particular stage of development, Akara is not there, Ikara is not there, Ukara, Rukara and so on are not there. It is at this point in time when the Tulyasya Prayatnam Savarnam Sutra kicks in and defines the Savarnas. So at this point, you don't even know that A and A are Savarnas. You just know that there is a variable called, there is a Varna called A exists. The relationship between A and A is clarified in the next step. So let's recollect. Varnanam Upadeshaha Tavata. Upadeshottara Kala Itsamnya. इत्संज्ञोत्तरकालः आदिरन्त्येन सहेता इति प्रत्याहारः प्रत्याहारोत्तरकाला सवर्णसंज्ञा. Now you know that a has a cousin called a. Still it is not present in ayuna, but a has a cousin called a. And then you say savarna samnyayam satyam savarna granam. So the ana pratyahara which is used in the anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya sutra is not yet doing the savarna grahanam. It is used to define the savarna grahanam. So you cannot bootstrap it, or you cannot just do a cyclic reference and say that ana will also do the savarna grahanam. So this ana at this stage in anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya only includes a, I, u, ru, lu, a, o, I, o and so on, and not the dirgha or the pluta bharjans. And this ana is now used to do the savarna grahanam and the tapara karanam along with that. So then pratyaharattara kala is savarna samnyottara kalam anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya iti savarna grahanam bhavati. So anena prakarena, and at this stage the pratyaharas or the varnas are fully developed, and from now onwards anywhere you read ana, it will include all the savarna grahanas, it will include all the savarnas, assuming it is a pratyayaha, it is the uddesha. So somebody is saying the sutra numbering doesn't match. That's okay, that's not an issue. So 1171 comes first, then 119 comes, then 1169 comes. As I mentioned, the only the logic behind the sutra patha is alpaksharatvam. It is not at all any kind of prakriya or any kind of varnotpatti, varna samskara and so on. So understand, this is actually the crux of all the concepts of today's class are being put together over here. First there is a varnopadesha, then there is itsamnya, then there is pratyahara, then there is savarna samnya, and then there is anudit savarnasya cha pratyaha iti savarna grahanam. After doing these 5 stages, your varnas are ready to be used in all the sutras going ahead. So samapayamaha. So as I mentioned, lots of interesting discussion in today's class. Here is the homework. Ekavakyena vakyadvayena va uttarata. So answer in 1 or 2 lines. Don't write essays. And adhodatteshu sutreshu sthula rupena nirdishtaha shabdaha savarna grahanam kurvanti uta na kurvanti. So go to the sutram, look at the paradcheda, look at my commentary over there, and or even Kashika Kaumudi is fine. You will immediately understand. Simple Sanskrit will be there. You will immediately understand whether the savarna grahanam is done or not. So that's it. I think samapayamaha. If there are any questions, I'll take it later on the group. Tomorrow there will be class as usual. In tomorrow's class, we are going to talk a lot of new sutra, lot of sutras. Prakriyopayoginyah samnyaha. So we are going to talk about the dhatu samnya, pratipadika samnya, pratyaya samnya, anga samnya, lopa samnya, and so on. We are going to talk in tomorrow's class. समापयामः. अष्टाध्यायी जगन्माता यस्य चित्तात् समस्थिता वेदानाम् उपकाराय तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. शब्द ब्रह्म समाराध्य कृतवान्यो विलक्षणं सर्वाश्चर्यमिदं शास्त्रं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. येन धौता गिरः पुंसां विमलैः शब्दवारिभिः तमश्चाज्ञानजं भिन्नं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. धन्यवादः.